Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got a special Transformers review coming your way. This time around we're doing a twofer. We're going to be taking a look at the G1 reissue of the Transformers Beast Wars Pterosaur, and we're going to be taking a look at that all-new buzzworthy Bumblebee Transformers Legacy Pterosaur. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging, and we're going to start with the big boy here. Just says Beast Wars Transformers, and it's that old school clamshell packaging, and you have quick attack action, and you've got some nice artwork there, and if you listen closely you can hear my dog chewing a ball in the background, but I'm not going to stop recording, so it is what it is. Down here the pterodactyl becomes aerial combat robot. And it's got that old school Kenner logo on there. Down at the bottom, you've just got that information. On the back, you have a bio, which we've seen in other reviews. And then you have this information right here, which you can pause and take a look at. Here's the Predacon Terrorsaur. You have your instructions over here. He does have the secret weapon. And then down here, you have your warnings. You have the Kenner logo, you have the sad baby, and the baby's sad because it's twice the terror with two pterosaurs. So that is the old school packaging. Now let's take a look at the new stuff here. So you've got that big gaping hole that we've become accustomed to for the Legacy figures. Transformers Legacy up at the top. And coming down here you've got some nice alt mode artwork. Big Bumblebee face, buzzworthy Bumblebee. Not sure what's going on with that brand now. Everything's Bumblebee, but it is what it is. Evil Predacon Terrorsaur. Nice alt mode artwork over there. He looks fantastic. Transformers Legacy. On the back you have your product shots. He transforms in 22 steps, almost identical to Airrazor. Transformers Legacy logo. All your warnings down there. We already talked about why the baby was sad. And then over here you get this artwork. It doesn't say anywhere, but he is a deluxe class, so just something to keep in mind. I'm not sure why they took that off. But frankly, it is kind of a big box for the size of the figure. All right, so now that we've got that two for packaging out of the way, let's go ahead and see what came inside those boxes, plural. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside those boxes or clamshell packages. And it's not much for either one of these guys. They did both, however, come with a little sheet of warnings, but I only have one for display because what's the point of having two? So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. And because the old school Pterosaur had his transformation instructions on the back of his package, he didn't come with a booklet. So the only one who did is the new guy. So there is a new Pterosaur's instruction booklet. And that leaves you with what we see here. So the only accessories either one of those guys came with was their pistol. So we're going to start with the old guy over here, the OG. And we'll take a look. So this folds up for the weapons storage. And as you can see, it's a bit of a droopy pistol. It's droopy. I don't know what else to say. It does fold up, and you can tuck it away inside his person. But when you unfold it, it's just droopy. You can maybe get lucky and have it hold, but that's just a little friction pin in there, and it just doesn't do much. And well, there you go. A little bit of sculpt work on there. Nothing amazing, nothing to write home about. So in no way, shape, or form am I excited about this accessory. And moving on to new guy. All right, new guy, let's take a look at your pistol. This pistol does not fold, but it's a little more solid, and it's got some okay sculpt work on it. No paint. So there you go. And really, this thing's not even blast effect compatible. The shape of this tip, you can squeeze a blast effect on there, which I'll show later, but it's not technically blast effect compatible. But you do have these tabs on the side here, these two little wings that you can use for weapon storage in bot mode or in alt mode. So that is it for the accessories, what came with these guys. And if you feel like it's a little bit of a letdown, you're right. So let's go ahead and we'll get into the details and the articulation, and we're going to focus on old guy first, and then we'll make our way over to new guy. So let's get this started. And here he is, the OG Pteranodon evil guy we've all been waiting to see, I suppose. This is the original G1 Pterosaur. Now, this is the 2022 Walmart re-release of that original mold. So to my knowledge, this is exactly what you would have purchased back in the heyday of the original Beast Wars figures. I unfortunately did not collect Beast Wars at that time, but here he is. I will also tell you now, I'm not a fan. He looks kind of cool and all, but I despise this figure. I just got him, and I despise him. I hate trying to pose him. He's so back heavy and top heavy, and these hips are so loose. They flop around. These ankles are kind of tight, and they kind of help. But with those hips right there, I spend more time trying to put this guy in a pose than I do actually anything else with him. So I really despise him. I can't help it. He sucks. But anyway, now my editorial out of the way, let's go ahead and bring him in and take a look at those details. So you can see he's got a cute little head on him. It's not exactly terrifying, but, you know, I guess that was what it was 20 plus years ago. And then you've got that chest. Chest is kind of cool. Of course, this is actually his tail in the alt mode. And then you've got not much going on down here at this crotch. And then coming down to those legs. And you've got some nice blue paint on there. Not a whole lot of detail anywhere else. And then you've just got these static Pteranodon pterodactyl wings hanging out back there. Taking a look at him from the side, you can see through him a little bit. I mean, he is a Predacon, so he is pretty transparent. And around the back, yeah, there you go. All right, so as far as his articulation goes, let's go ahead and get into that. The head is, well, it's on a joint. I mean, I think technically there's a ball in there, but it's just going to flop around up and down right there. And then you can get side to side and go all the way around if you want to. Coming down to the shoulders are on ball joints. So you can come up that far and you can go all the way around if you want to. The elbows are on ball joints, so you can bend them. Oh, don't get ahead of ourselves. You can bend them just over 90. And then because they're on ball joints, that bicep rotation can go all the way around as well. And coming down here to the hands, the only thing you get on the hands, this is kind of that transformation joint where this flips up to give you the Pteranodon claw. So if you want to count that, you can do stuff with that for sure. Totally up to you. All right, and coming down here to those legs, what they lack in friction, they make up for in range, I suppose. So you can get a nice full split out of this guy. He does not have anything at the waist. I didn't skip that. Well, I did skip it just simply because there's nothing there. But you can get a nice full split out of this guy. And kicking forward, I'm going to hold you by your bird head. He can kick forward that far. He can kick backward if you get past the bird stuff that far. And you've got, if you want to call it rotation, you have rotation right there on that ball joint as well. And then down here at the knees as well are on a ball joint, so you can get right at 90 degrees, and then you can just twist that around without taking that ball joint off. That's how loose these are. You barely put any friction on this, and these just pop out. So, but you do have ball joint knees, so angle is up to you. And then coming down here to the feet can go down that far. They can go up that far. So good forward and back or up and down range of motion in those feet, but nothing, no ankle tilt, nothing else. So yeah, there is the original G1, and this is what I'm talking about. Just trying to set the guy down. I just want to set you down. Just want to set you down. There. So you can get him to stand up, but he's got this forward crotch thrusting kind of thing going where he's just a really aggressive guy at the club trying to pick up chicks, I guess. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in his one and only accessory, because there's no sense having a separate segment for that. We will take his little droopy gun and twist that arm. There we go. And plug it in. And wow, would you look at that? He can shoot his droopy gun. Maybe we'll get lucky. There you go. So yeah, there you go. Bam, bam, bam. Stick 'em up. So there you have G1 Terrorsaur. I hate this guy. I hate him. You're going down. There you have G1 Pterosaur. So I'm going to get him the heck away from me, and I'm going to move on to the new guy. Yeah, I'm over trying to make this guy stand up. I'm not going to pose him anymore, but I did want to mention one thing real quick. He does have some pretty clever weapon storage, so I did want to go over that. I mentioned that I would, and I almost forgot. So let's go ahead and talk about that real quick before we move on. So you've got his little gun here, his little droopy pistol. If you fold this up like that, he has a little compartment right here behind his head, and you can just take that and you can plug that in right there. So then when you transform him, quote unquote, you can just have all of that stored. So he's got this spring-loaded transformation here, and look, his arm fell off. Oh, surprise. And then his weapon is stored. There we go. Then his weapon is stored right there in his butt. So, you know, that's cool. I like that. So I wanted to bring that up and show you guys. And let me plug his arm back in. Oh, look at that. This time it was the elbow. It wasn't the shoulder. Anyway. All right, so that was that. I just wanted to point that out to you guys. So let's move on. This is much better. It's not perfect by any means, but it is much better. I'm going to start off right away with my single biggest complaint about this figure. I do very much like everything about him in his bot mode, the way he looks, good articulation, all that good stuff. However, he has some of the weakest ankles I've ever seen out of the box on a deluxe class figure ever. It's just really, really weak. I mean, these things, they're on ball joints, so bad choice. This is the same design as Airrazor, and her ball joints were nice and tight, but my gosh, this very little pressure at all to just get these things to wiggle, and they just don't hold. And then you couple it with the fact that these joints aren't very tight, you know, so you've got right there just a lot of play initially before you meet any resistance, and then you come up here, and the same thing with this joint, you get a little bit of play before you get any resistance. But the hips, my goodness. I mean, they're super tight. Forward, back, up, down. Shoulders are super tight. Listen to that. Man, why can't all the joints be that tight? And if you're going to make loose joints, why make them the ankles? Because this guy would be incredibly easy to pose if those ankles would hold him up. All right, so enough of the complaining. Let's get into the details here, because he does look pretty darn cool, I got to admit. So there's that face, looking far more terrifying than the G1 Pterosaur. He just has that evil grin about him. And then he has that nicely textured chest with the green paint. I would have liked to have seen more paint on this figure. That's the one thing that I'll give the OG, is he has more green paint, particularly in his alt mode, which we'll see. But yeah, I would have liked to have had more paint on this figure than what we got, just to break up some of that monotony. Maybe some silvers down here would have been nice. But that crotch looks pretty good. Good sculpt work in the legs. You do have a few hollow areas, just like Airrazor, but they're nothing major, and they do fill in pretty well. And coming down to those legs, lower legs. Good sculpt work there. And then for those feet, you got the little faux claws right there, and then the real claws in the back. So looks pretty good. And let's get that arm out of the way. Coming up the side. Not a lot to talk about here, but again, commendable job with that sculpt work. I do like what they've done. And he's not hollow. He's solid all the way through, which is helpful. And coming over here to these arms. Good sculpt work on those shoulders. And these little fins right here do come out to expose 5mm ports if you want to use blast effects on this guy. But he looks pretty good with his fins, so I'm not going to utilize those for blast effects, not when I have these. And then you got those big, well, they're not big. You got those tiny purple fists. He's got little hands. All right, and coming around to the back, you've got some folded up dino bird back there. So not a lot to look at. I mean, he's still got a pretty good profile, good silhouette, if I can get him to stay. So you can see in the backs of the legs right here, he's hollow, but they've got a rib in there to kind of give that illusion that he's not quite as hollow as he is. So I appreciate the effort there. And then you've got a couple of 5mm ports back here, which you can use for the rocket boots. They work better in his Dino Bird mode than they do here, but they are available for you if you want to use them. So now let's go ahead and talk about articulation. So the articulation on this guy, you get down that far, you get what you've got a joint here, and you can get a little bit of head wiggle. I don't know if I can actually show it to you because of that joint, but you get up that far, down that far. I'm not going to spend too much effort on it. And nothing really side to side, but you can turn that head before his big old chin runs into things that far either direction. So nice head movement. You're not going to get it all the way around, but you don't really need to, I suppose. As far as those shoulders go, like we mentioned earlier, they are tight, but I love the range of motion in these, so you can get them up nice and high and then go all the way around. Just be mindful of the geometry back here. And at the elbow, nope, don't get ahead of yourself. At the elbow, you get just over 90 degrees, and then you get bicep rotation. And then down here at the wrist, just like Airrazor, you don't get any wrist rotation, but you, due to the transformation, you can utilize that if you want to. Not sure what the circumstances might be, but that's available to you if you choose to do it. All right, coming down here to the waist. Now, if you lift this tail up and get it out of the way, you've got good waist rotation. You can go around quite a bit. So, I mean, technically for transformation, you go all the way around 180 degrees. So, yeah, I would like to think you get good waist rotation. All right, and then down here at the legs, just give those the old split. And you do get a full split. You don't quite get a Van Damme on this guy, but you do get a nice deep split, so nothing to complain about there. And then kicking forward. Get everything straight in here. Come on, there we go. You kick forward that far, and kicking backward. You can kick backward that far, so nice deep back kick as well. And then nothing at the hips up here, but you do get rotation just above those knees. So you can rotate those out and go all the way around. And then for the knee itself, nice and deep. I mean, this is going to be his bird legs or his dino legs. So you would expect to have a nice deep bend here. So very well done. And then coming down to those feet I was complaining about earlier, because they are on ball joints. You can go down that far. You can go up that far. And then you have a little bit of ankle tilt out and a little bit of ankle tilt in, and then spin those around as you would for your transformation anyway. So articulation, I think, is pretty well done. It's a good design. I like the way he looks. Just wish those ankle joints were stronger. That's my biggest complaint about him in his bot mode. All right, so, oh no, we got to talk about the accessories. We're not going to have a separate segment here. He has a gun, and you can plug it in. And then bam, 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 you can do that. You can also, if you want to force a blast effect on there, you can. I wouldn't go very deep if I were you, but you can do it if you choose to. All right, and then as far as weapon storage goes, let's not forget about that. Move that arm out of the way. You have these tabs, or these slots right here. And you have these tabs on the gun, and you just plug it in. And hey, it's not bad. And because there's zero paint on the wings or on the gun, it blends right in and almost disappears. So it's kind of like magic. All right, so now that is it. We've talked about details. We've talked about articulation. We've talked about accessories. So really the only thing left to do is to get these guys in their alt modes and take a look at them from there. Hey, real quick, I did want to mention on the articulation that you can utilize these wings in his bot mode as well. So it really helps as far as expression for the figure. So you can swing those wings up. You can swing them back. If you want to disconnect them, they tab in back here. But if you want to disconnect them, you certainly can. And you can give him that full winged look if you want to do that. So definitely some options there, things that you can do to give him a little bit more personality instead of just having them all tucked away back there. So just wanted to mention that. I figured most people would probably know that by now with Airrazor, but wanted to mention that so it was out there. So now let's go ahead and move on to those alt modes. All right, so here we see both the Pterosaurs in their alt modes, or those pterodactyl modes, and you can see how much progress has been made from that original to the new one for the Buzzworthy Bumblebee or the Transformers Legacy or Kingdom. Take your pick, wherever you want to put that design. So yeah, I mean, this one is certainly significantly improved. I think I like the paint better on the original, just where that green continues all the way up to the little pterodactyl hands there. But the overall design, of course, is better. And you do have not a lot of blast effect compatibility, but you do have a little bit on that new one. So you've got those rockets that you can use to make it look like he's soaring through the air. And although technically the gun, which you can store here or under the wing as we saw earlier, although technically it's not blast effect compatible, you can kind of sort of squeeze a blast effect on there to do something if you want to. So yeah, I mean, there they are. Are they the greatest? No, but this is certainly a vast improvement over what we got here. So what we'll do now is we'll take them off the turntable, and we'll take a brief look at them individually to kind of deep dive those details in this alt mode. Just like we did for the details and articulation in the bot mode, we're going to start with the OG here, that original Pterosaur. So let's bring him in and take a look at the details in this mode. And there is that Pterosaur head, and he does have those little white teeth, and you can open the mouth up, you can close the mouth, it's up to you. Looks pretty good. I do like the paint on this guy. The eyes are a little bland. I like the eyes better on the new one, but this isn't bad. And then you got the teeny tiny pterodactyl hands. Oh, aren't they cute? And then you can see you do have a little bit of a texture right here in those wings. Let's go ahead and just hold him out like this so you can see what's going on. Alright, and then making our way to the bottom. It's just some folded up Pterosaur bot up in there. So not a whole lot to talk about. You do have the underside of those teeny tiny pterodactyl hands and a little bit of texturing right there on those edges. But that's really about it. This is what you get. So you can move the feet if you want to move the feet, and you can open that head if you want to open that head. So there you go. Now that we've got his details out of the way, let's go ahead and bring in his more modern brother. Alright, so here we have the more modern take on Pterosaur, and it's not a vast improvement. The design is certainly better, but I still think it lacks in that just overall quality, feel, and look. Let's go ahead and get into it, and we'll look at his head first, just like we did with the original. So you have a slightly more detailed head, and you have eyes with pupils, which is good. Not as many teeth as you had with the original. And then that beak is curved upward. Not sure if that's anatomically correct or not, but it is on this one. So just like the other one, you could open the mouth that far, you can close the mouth. Head goes down that far, goes up that far. You can turn it all the way around because that way he can see what's going on behind him. And then these wings, unlike the original, these wings are quite adjustable, again, based on that Airrazor design. So you can do a lot of stuff with these wings, a lot of expression. So you can see all the different hinges that you have in there. And then, of course, you can swing these back, swing them out. So a lot of options there for sure. And taking a look at him from the back, you can see what I'm talking about. They've got the paint just on the main body area here, but really nothing in the wings. Now, you do have some texturing, which is okay, and it does make it look a little more, I guess not see-through, but almost like actual organic wings, like bat wings or pterodactyl wings, where you can kind of see through them, and kind of gives you that feel that it is organic tissue. And coming around to the bottom, let's just go ahead and look at him like this. So you can see, again, it's a lot of folded up Pterosaur, just folded up in a different way. This is the Airrazor designs, so all of this is Airrazor transformation down here, the arms, the legs, that kind of stuff, just tucking them away, giving him that chicken stance. So not the worst thing in the world, but in this mode you do have a couple spots for weapons storage if you want to use it. You've got these slots on either side, so this wing or the other, and you've got these slots on this hip or the other, so totally up to you. As far as articulation goes, we talked about those wings, the legs, they're Airrazor legs, so you can bring them out, you can bring them down, you can fold this one in, you can turn these around, they're on those ball joints, so you can do quite a bit as far as articulation with this guy, but you do have to precariously balance him just because those feet are set so far back and there's just so much mass up here. So just be aware of that, because if you bring him too far forward, he's just not going to be able to support the weight, and he's going to do one of those on you. So just something to be aware of. You just got to find that sweet spot. But other than that, yeah. Oh, hey, take it easy. All right, so other than that, pretty much wraps it up for the alt modes here. So what we'll do is we will get both these guys back out here in front of the camera, and we'll do some alt mode comparisons, kind of a 2-on-1 comparison action. All right, for our first alt mode comparison, here we see both of the Pterosaurs next to the original Maximal Cybershark. And man, this dude is awesome. I love him. He's still my favorite. For our next comparison, here we see the two Pterosaurs next to the War for Cybertron Kingdom Airrazor. So you can see just how many design elements were borrowed from Airrazor for that new Pterosaur. Basically the entire lower body, and for the most part, other than the way the wings look, the design itself was borrowed. The head assembly is different, so you have that, but everything else is virtually the same. And we're going to wrap up the alt mode comparisons with some sweet Pteranodon on Pteranodon action. So this is Strafe, aka Swoop, from the Transformers Age of Extinction Bayverse movie. So you can see how those three guys compare. Hey, alright, it's time for a piggyback ride. Nope, that's not right. It's time to get these guys back in their bot modes and do some bot mode comparisons. For our first bot mode comparison, you can see the Pterosaurs are flanking the G1 Cybershark, so you can see how he compares, or they compare to him. And yeah, he's definitely cooler than this guy. For our next bot mode comparison, here we see the War for Cybertron Kingdom Airrazor right there in the middle of the two Pterosaurs, and you can see, as we spoke about in the alt mode, just how much was borrowed from Airrazor to create the new Pterosaur figure on the left over there. So there you go. And for that last bot mode comparison, here we see Big Blue in the middle. This is the Transformers Age of Extinction Strafe, or Swoop, whatever you want to call him. So yeah, this is just a bot mode Pteranodon extravaganza. Well, I guess the piggyback ride signals the end of the bot mode comparisons, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. Man, oh man, do I have some thoughts. So let's go ahead and get into them and talk about that OG 2022 reissue of Pterosaur and the Legacy Pterosaur. Let's start with the old guy and go ahead and get that out of the way. In summary, I don't like him. I don't like this figure. He looks kind of good in his alt mode, which is why I have him there like that. But yeah, I think even back in the day, I probably wouldn't have liked this figure very much. But let's go ahead and start. We'll talk about the aesthetics on that guy. In his alt mode, he looks all right. I mean, I have to remind myself I'm basing my scoring on the fact that this is a 20-plus-year-old design. So from a looks standpoint, an overall aesthetic standpoint, I think he looks pretty good in his alt mode. Better in his alt mode than in his bot mode, in my opinion. The bot mode is fine, but the alt mode is probably the way I'm going to keep him. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 on his overall looks. Moving on to his articulation. Yeah, it was okay for its time. Nothing amazing there, nothing groundbreaking. He's got those big old wings that I really wish they would have been able to do something with in the bot mode, but he's just a cheap little figure. I can only imagine he was a cheap little figure then, and really, he should be just a cheap little figure now. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but we'll talk about that here shortly. So I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 on articulation. Moving on to the accessories. Best thing I can say is it's got some cool storage to it. It's a droopy little cheap gun that does absolutely nothing for the figure and kind of blends into everything else. I'm not impressed by it. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 for the accessories. Moving on to the quality. Oh, I'm so annoyed at this figure. It's not something that I can't fix on my own, but man, I shouldn't have to fix things coming out of the box. That's what really annoys me out of these figures. This is a main line. It's a huge company. It's Hasbro. Their QC should be better than this. And I know it's not, so why do I even bother complaining about it? But anyway, those hips are so loose, I cannot pose him in bot mode. I give up. He has beaten me. I don't like to mess with this figure in bot mode. So I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 in quality, and I feel like that's being kind of generous. Taking us to our last bullet for the OG Pterosaur, which is overall value. Yeah, this is a Walmart reissue, 2022 reissue, and their going price at Walmart is $25 US. I don't think this figure is even close to worth that. I picked up the OG Rat Trap at Walmart through one of the reissues when he was on clearance for $10, and I probably should have waited for the same thing with Pterosaur here. I was just excited to see him on the shelf. I never had one. I wanted to pick him up. $25 was a big pill to swallow, and I regret it. I'm not going to lie. I regret this purchase. I cannot recommend this figure. I'm only going to give him a 4 out of 10 for value, and that's really just to cover the cost of the plastic to make him. So that gives him, well, I'll get to the overalls here shortly. But yeah, he's not a good figure. I do not recommend him. So let's go ahead and move on to the Legacy Pterosaur. Thank goodness this guy's better, but he has his sticking points as well. So overall aesthetic on this guy, I have no complaints as far as the sculpt work goes. I think he just looks good in his bot mode. He looks okay in his alt mode, but his bot mode is definitely my favorite here. He definitely could have benefited from some more paint. On those wings, in those legs, somewhere, some more paint, because that is a whole lot of red going on right there. But that's my biggest complaint. Otherwise, I really like him. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Moving on to the articulation for Legacy Terrorsaur. Yeah, it's got just about everything that you could ask for in a mainline deluxe class figure. I would have liked to have had a little bit more in the head and a little bit more in the feet as far as the ankle tilt and the up and down go. But for the most part, he's very well articulated, so I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. Moving on to the accessories. I have no mercy here. It's plain. It's lame. It's no good. If you want to call his little fins accessories, go for it, but I don't. I feel like they're just part of the figure. So if he would have come with missiles like Airrazor did, or the Beast Wars Prowl came with, that might have made a difference. But this is just a plain red plastic molded pistol that blends in with all the other red on this figure. You almost lose it just looking at him. I find really no joy in it. It doesn't excite me whatsoever. And to top it all off, it's not technically blast effect compatible. You have to stretch out your blast effects to get them on there. So I have no mercy here. I'm giving him a 5 out of 10 on accessories. I just think this was disappointing. Moving on to overall quality. He's good everywhere but the ankles. Of all the places, why do the ankles have to be the loose ones? Those loose ball joints. It makes him difficult to pose as well, which is part of the reason I have him in this kneeling pose right now. But you can find the sweet spot with this guy. But everything else, he came with the one thing he was supposed to. Transformation works. Everything tabs in. All the other joints are tight. Those shoulder joints are incredibly tight. Why couldn't the whole figure have been that way? Again, I'm knocking Hasbro quality, and I won't stop doing it. Because of those ankles, that's dragging his score down. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. So that brings us to our last bullet on the Legacy Pterosaur, which is the overall value. I picked this guy up at a Target in the wild, and he was $25 US. So yes, you're seeing this correctly. These two figures are both the exact same price. So why would you pay $25 for this when you could get this for $25? Other than the nostalgia factor, that's what you're paying for with this figure, is nostalgia. And I don't have nostalgia for this figure. So, but that being said, let's go ahead and we'll put the scores up there on the video. For the OG, the original Pterosaur, I'm giving him 31 out of 50, which is a 62%. And for the Legacy Pterosaur, I'm giving him 37 out of 50, which is 74%. The caveat on that is his score is so low because of this lame accessory and those ankles. Everything else, he's a high scorer. So I recommend this figure. This figure, good. The other guy, he is a do not recommend. I regret picking him up. That clamshell packaging, for everything from the clamshell packaging to the looseness of everything, I find no joy in this figure. So he's good. He not good. So with that, that's going to wrap up the review. I hope you guys got some good information out of this. I hope you were entertained. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe and leave some comments. Let me know what you think. I have no nostalgia for the old Beast Wars figures. Therefore, I have no mercy on this guy. So maybe I'm seeing it all wrong. But that's going to wrap it up. So until we see you guys in the next one, take care.